Hey, Scott, welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Tell us who you are, what you do.
Sure, I'm Scott Leff. I'm the founder of a B2B content marketing agency, also called Leff. And we've been around for about 16 years. We serve global professional services firms and B2B companies and a couple nonprofits as well.
Cool. Are you an accidental agency owner? What made you guys get started?
Absolutely an accidental agency owner. I, um, I got my start in business communications and publishing with McKinsey and Company and working as the managing editor for the McKinsey Quarterly. When Chicago, my hometown, bid for the 2016 Olympic Games, I went over and worked with the uh, organization there for about 22 months, pulling together a plan, communicating it to various stakeholders and to the International Olympic Committee. We lost unceremoniously in the first round. That was back in 2009, and like a lot of people who have been involved in campaigns, you're in it and you can't conceive of any outcome besides winning. And so when we didn't, it brought up a period of self reflection and experimentation to figure out, okay, what's next. I thought I understood what's next, and my wife, who's in branding and marketing, said, "Why don't you just hang up your shingle? We hire writers and editors all the time." And this was, I don't know if the gig economy was just taking off. I was just becoming aware of it, and so it was serendipitous, and uh, slowly filled up my dance card with work to the point where I had to hire somebody, and then away we went. So it was very accidental, incremental until we hit COVID, and then things exploded, and we grew by two or three times in the span of a few years. And coming out of the pandemic, it's been a little bit of reassessment, understanding what we offer, how the landscape's changed, how AI is affecting everything. And so it's been an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I almost took a job with McKinsey. I actually, out of college, I took a job with Arthur Anderson. If you remember
Sure.
who they were,
Yeah.
they're obviously not around anymore, but it was fun kind of working for the biggest consulting firm, you know, because back then it was like the top five.
Right.
And it was just kind of the wild, wild west to like, how much could you learn in that amount of time? Now it's kind of like those companies, I would think now, like I ran a, I went into AI the other day. I said, I want you to act as old Scott, old McKinsey researcher, and do a SWOT analysis. And what came back was unbelievable. Like I was blown away about that. But I always reminisce of those days when it was like that. I want to get into your agency kind of progression over the years. How has your bottleneck? Because when you started hiring people and you started managing people, right? Were you a bottleneck for making decisions where they would flow all the decisions back through you, or were they off the races where you're like, yeah, man, like this is what I want, go fix it?
Well, for the first 10, 12 years, I think everything flowed through me or my business partner. And so it wasn't, most of the time, it wasn't a challenge because we were able to make decisions pretty quickly. We try not to drag our feet. But uh, it's not possible to know everything about what's happening in the agency so that you can make informed decisions. And when you have to rely on others uh, to uh, well, delegate responsibility to them, uh, report back to you on what they're hearing, what some of the opportunities might be. That's just a different kind of dynamic, and I think we had to adjust quite a bit to that. Both broadening out the management team a bit so that we are providing transparency to them about some of the higher level strategy. They're also
Yeah.
reporting back on what they're hearing, and then I think that allowed us to get to a better place. But never without more pain and drama than you like.
Yeah. Why do you think you guys held on to those decisions for so long?
I think uh, that's a good question.
Was it like control? Like, I remember I used to be like a control freak. Like I was like, man, It's live or die with me. And then I'm like, that's the dumbest thing.
Yeah, well, it's there are certain things I don't care at all about. Uh, there are others that I tried to delegate that I realized I should have cared much more about. One was hiring, and that was something that I thought it's important to give department managers some of the authority and autonomy to find good people and bring them in.
Hmm.
And I realized that uh, in a culture driven organization like an agency where it matters so much, you really can't do that. You need to be involved, but it's finding, I think, how to be involved and at what level. You can't micromanage the whole thing, but you do need to be involved. And so I think you could take that example and probably extrapolate it across so many of the other decisions we were trying to
Hmm.
make, and
Yeah.
finding that way to be part of the conversation when you need it to be, and provide that perspective that maybe only you have, was an adjustment.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of times we kind of, I, I don't know, maybe this happened to you. Did you kind of self sabotage certain things so you can get involved again?
I didn't do that, but I did. There were times where maybe I delegated without the proper direction or support, so that
Hmm.
I could go heads down on something else, and that wasn't the thing to do. It didn't get the outcome we wanted, because you can't assume that people have the experience and the knowledge to deal with what are often ambiguous kinds of decisions. It's these things often aren't cut and dried. Talent would be a perfect example. I was at a conference in October and was heard someone who had been involved in hiring and talent at Amazon and other places speak about it, and I realized that we had been doing it all wrong. We didn't have the rigor. We didn't have the clear intention about what we were looking for. The role descriptions weren't really what they should have been, and he told a story about he was working with Jeff Bezos back in the day to hire an engineering team, and they'd gone through the rounds of interviews, and then they met to compare notes. And he said Bezos came in with 3 or 4 pages of handwritten notes, and he said to everybody else, "Where are your notes?" And they said, "We didn't take any." And he said, "I guarantee you, if I can take notes, as busy as I am, you can do it. So do your job." And that was an eye opener. I mean, we hadn't applied that level of rigor to hiring, and at an agency where your people represent your point of distinction as well as 80% of your overhead, then you've got to make it more of a priority and be better about it.
So what did you change about that other than taking notes in the interview and that kind of stuff? Like,
We haven't we haven't hired anybody since I got that piece of information, so you'll have to check back. But definitely more rigor on the front end, being very clear about what we're looking for, and then not going in. I think previously we went in winging it a bit and trusting our gut, trying to get a sense of the whole person rather than their qualifications and experience and how it lined up to what we were asking them to do. And again, this is one of those things where when you say it out loud, you think, well, of course that's what you're supposed to be doing. But
yeah, you
nobody had
get
ever sat
busy.
us down and said, uh, here's the actual process that will yield a better outcome. And I think for agency owners, you're often thrust into those positions where you're doing the best uh, with the experience and knowledge you have. You're trusting your gut. Sometimes you get a great outcome uh, despite a bad process. Other times you follow a good process and you get somebody who's a terrible fit. And so anything that can take some of the guesswork out, increase your odds, I think,
Yeah.
uh, really important.
One of the things I see, and I've done this in the past, I see this a lot, is us as entrepreneurs, we hire to have things fixed within the company. Like we're hiring to solve a problem. But what we don't have is we don't have a system in place. So it's kind of like especially in agency world or tech world, we just throw people to the wolves and we go figure it out. And if we hire the really good people, they'll go figure it out. But a lot of times I see people hiring, including myself. I've hired people at the agency, and then we're like, man, they were a good person looking back at that. They had the core values, they had everything we needed, but we didn't give them the system. It's kind of almost like we can bring AI into your agency, but if your process and all the foundation is broken, it's going to just point it out even more. And it's just going to make it a train wreck. I mean, sometimes it may get some good results, but I mean, that's kind of, it's kind of almost like employee slop or AI slop or whatever it is, right? Like it all comes back to like, we almost have to build that right foundation for them to be successful. Right. And a lot of times I remember in the very beginning, maybe even toward the middle, maybe even the 3/4, right? Like we just got lucky because I was busy. I was like, I got bigger shit to fry.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then you have those employees who are complete self-starters and they just figure it out. Makes you feel like a great manager. And it's only when you have employees that maybe need a little bit more direction support, and either the organization hasn't built the muscles or the process, or you don't have the time to do it, that it's no wonder you don't end up in a great place.
Yeah. Do you feel that you're a good manager or a bad manager?
Uh,
I'm not talking about a leader. I'm talking about a manager.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I've learned a lot since becoming a parent. Of it's
Yeah.
made me a better manager. I
Okay.
think there are. I don't know if it's one of my top attributes, and I think I'm good at the understanding and empathy part, and
Uh-huh.
trying to put myself in their shoes and understand what their challenges are and what they need. It's a lot of work to be a
When you
manager and hold people accountable.
Well, when you're doing work and you're managing people, like I just didn't like I was a shitty manager, and I'm still a shitty manager. I just like I tell everybody on the podcast, I hire people that can manage themselves
Yeah,
because I
but
know that,
and
right?
I assume you've gotten good at finding them too.
Oh yes. Well, because whatever I'm going to have them put them through in the interview process, everything is a test. I'm testing them for this. Like I give
Hmm.
them very little information, or I'll tell them the outcome, but then I want to see if they're asking questions, or if I'm hiring for someone attention to detail and I post it on a job board. Do you really think I'm going to look at anybody that clicks on the application? I'm burying in the very bottom of the job description. Do not apply here. If you apply here, you will not work here. You must go here, do this, this, this. Like I string it all together. So then I'm not going through 1,000 damn interviews of some jackasses or that using ChatGPT or whatever to just hit, apply.
It's the legendary Van Halen brown M&Ms and the rider kind of
Yes,
thing,
exactly.
where if you're not paying attention to that detail, how do I know that you've rigged the lights properly and it's not going to drop on my guitar player?
Exactly. Exactly. Right. Like you're burying little things, seeing it like, especially if I'm hiring someone I want, like the core attribute of this job is attention to detail. If you can't do it in the very beginning, you're not gonna test. Like I used to laugh at like when I came out of school, I interviewed like with McKinsey and Microsoft and all that. And I remember Microsoft asking the dumbest interview questions. But looking back at it, they were trying to think about how I thought. What was my thought process? How could I solve a problem? Because they were like, if you had 1,000 M&Ms and blah 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 blah. I was like, I literally went to him. I said, "This is the dumbest question I've ever heard. Like, I like why?" And the person was just following a script.
Yeah.
Right? They were like, "All right, you're on a square island with a square moat. The moat is 10 feet in diameter across. You only have two 9-foot poles. How do you get across?" I was like, So I'd start asking questions. Can you tie it, right? Like this, the secret is lay the pole halfway across because the square island is the key and
Yeah.
you put it over it. But I was like, this is the dumbest thing. Do you, but now I look back, I'm like, all right, Mr. Gates, that was a good interview question. So
Now,
sometimes I steal that.
I'm curious, how have you adjusted your interview process when it comes to hiring more senior people? Because I think that's a little bit more. We found it to be a little bit more challenging. I'd love to hear what you've learned.
It's more on their values, right? So in the very beginning, when you're hiring, you think you need to duplicate yourself, and that's a complete, utter fucking disaster, right? Because two of you are just going to talk all the time and never going to execute because we're like, hey, I have this idea and let me tell you about it. Oh man, that's a good idea, but let me tell you about this idea, right? And you're an idea factory with no execution. And I had to find my opposite, but I had to find the people that believed in what we believed in. That's why, a lot of times, I love like Tony Hsieh at Zappos, right? Their core values, or probably Amazon has that and all that kind of stuff. I know they bought, Tony's company, but, um, I believed in the core values. Like if they believe in what I believe in, like being resourceful, um, learning, sharing, having fun, not being serious, fucking around, right? Like those different things. Like, could I go on a road trip with them? Would I have them over at my house? That's kind of how we pick, mastermind members to join and that kind of stuff, and the people that we help. The same way, like that's how you should be picking your clients out. But for execs, that's the first thing. And then one of the things that really makes it very easy for me is I go, all right, I don't tell them much about the job. I'll say, I want you to come up with a 90-day success plan. I hire you tomorrow. What does your 90-day success plan look like? And if they go into what it looks like right away, I'm like, no. Like, I want them to ask questions. I want them to take time. I want them to book the next meeting with me, right? I want them to do everything because I am hiring an exec or anybody to give me back my time. I'm not hiring someone to give me more time. That's what I did in the very beginning when I hired the wrong people.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Um, yeah, one of the things that came out of that session with the hiring person I talked about earlier was uh, the conversation highlighted uh, different factors that maybe don't seem like they make a lot of difference, but they really do. If somebody has worked at only large companies and you're hiring them to
Oh,
work in your small agency,
nope.
that's tough.
No, no, no.
If they've worked primarily in the nonprofit world and you're bringing them
Yep.
in, so things like that. Another one was if an executive has a side hustle, that could be a red flag.
Mm-hmm.
Not that you want to uh, necessarily grade somebody down because they have ambition, but if you're hiring somebody
Yep.
at that level, you want the bulk of their ambition to be directed
Yep.
to your organization.
Well, I used to think I would go to when I started the agency in Atlanta. There was a great talent pool in Atlanta, just like Chicago or New York, right? Like that was where tons of brands were, tons of talent. And I used to look up to some of the bigger agencies. Like, at the time we were maybe like 10 people. And I would look at some of the bigger ones, like 200 people, 300 people. I'd be like, man, if I can just get some of them, right? Then we could be that. They could transform us. And so I did that. I brought some of those people in. They were like, I felt like I was in Office Space because they thought they would have so many resources, and they didn't check mark my number one trait that I look for as being resourceful, because they
Mhm.
were so used to having a big team and all these resources. They were just like, time to make the donuts. We're going to follow this SOP that's always been. And they would say, that's not my job. I'm like, that's exactly right. That's not your job, and you don't have a job.
It's that resourcefulness. There is a skill to being able to thrive in a large organization,
Yes.
because managing the layers, understanding how to get the
How to kiss
gears.
ass.
Yeah, that's another one. It's another one. But when I was over at the Olympic bid, every consulting firm in Chicago had seconded a team there, and it was interesting to see some of them outside of their bubble. The bid organization was a little bit like a campaign. It wasn't built to last. There weren't the structure and processes
Mhm.
and other things that you need to have in a large organization and be able to navigate. And so it was Wild West, and some people did really well, and others floundered because they were used to, okay, so can you do this? No, we don't have the resources. You have to figure out how to do
Mhm.
it yourself.
Yeah, drove me nuts. That's why I didn't last long at Arthur Anderson. I can't do those politics. Like
Yeah.
I'm originally a New Yorker, so I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. I'm not going to beat around the bush. And so, it
Well,
was that was challenging. It's probably why
yeah.
I didn't go in the military, even though I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I was like, I probably would have been in Guantanamo Bay or something.
Well, coincidentally, Arthur Anderson didn't last that much longer either, I'd imagine, depending on
No,
where
not,
you were
that one day I walked in and I saw the paper shredding happen. No, I'm just kidding.
there.
That would be funny. Yeah, the funny part is my boss actually applied to my agency many years later, didn't know I owned it.
Hmm.
So I was like,
How was
oh,
that
full circle
conversation?
here. I didn't, she didn't make the interview process. So I should have brought her in, but then I was like, why even waste my time?
It's
So,
you always imagine the comeuppance you're going to deliver in one way, and I think in the real world it often doesn't pan out and isn't quite as worth your time or
well,
energy.
what you realize is it's a very small world, and all you have is your reputation, and and that's really it, right? Like if you say you're going to do something. That's my biggest thing. You know, I when people go back on their word or do something very different than what they tell you, like okay, like it may not come back to bite you now, but later on it may. So
People remember that stuff for sure.
yeah, yeah, you just got to be consistent and show up, and that's really it. I mean, that's and be patient, which is very hard for me. And that's why my team made me get some stupid little turtle tattoo. So you be patient. So
That's to remind you to slow down and be
yeah.
thoughtful.
Well, I lost a bet. It was the bet was I was like it was this last year. So we do a couple events throughout the year, and there was just no one was signing up for this event or not at the pace we thought we should have. And my team was like, "Look, we'll sell out. We always do. Just be patient. When we sell out, you're going to get a turtle tattoo." I was like, "Yeah, sure. Like that won't happen." We sold out. I was like, "All right, well, we'll get the turtle tattoo. We'll put it next to the Iron Man tattoo because I was one of the slowest doing the Iron Man. So I was like, all right, that kind of works."
uh, you still did it. You still finished, right?
I still finished 16 hours and 20 minutes later.
Oof. Oof.
I
Now,
just had to finish under 17 to be official, and I did it.
okay. Okay. It's
So,
do you listen to music when you work out, or are you alone with your thoughts? Because 16 hours is a long time to be alone with your thoughts.
that's the scary part. I'm alone with my thoughts. Yeah. And the thoughts are like, what? Hey, dummy, why are you doing this? Or, okay, almost there. But, looking back, I love doing it. And I always I remember the first hour and I remember the last hour. Everything between is a blur. And it's
Yeah.
almost identical to the agency world. I remember the first hour. I remember a couple little things in the middle, but then I remember the end. And just because you're just so busy, just going, I got to get to the end. I got to get to the end. And at both situations, I really wish I kind of took more stock to remember some more of the stories, because I'll get together with my old team all the time and they'll be like, "Hey, you remember that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I do actually remember that part." But we always thought the end goal is to sell, and that's it. I'm like, well, that's like a moment in time, like this big, versus remembering the whole 12 years, or in your case, 16 years, or whatever it is, right? So,
I'm curious, how did you, when you were running an agency, how did you deal with getting to the end of the year, taking stock, feeling pretty good about what you'd accomplished? You get to January
restarting.
1st or 2nd, start all over again. How did you moderate that? Because it sometimes it can feel, uh,
Got
if
a big
not like,
hill to climb again. Yeah.
yeah, Sisyphus, right? So how did you moderate that?
It was stressful, right? Especially when we would pay all the taxes. You try to push the money around, or however, because as the owners, right, like it's a pass through most of the case, and you're just like getting hammered. You're like, man, I didn't even use this money, and we have all this money in the company, right? You're like, oh, like this is horrible. This is the worst business I could have ever pick. Um, but then I started thinking about it this way of going, it's just a new challenge. It's another race. It's another mountain to climb. And I just was like, you got to just go back to the basics a lot of times, of going like, I grew up playing tennis and played tennis in college. And I remember I was losing to a guy that I shouldn't be losing to. And my coach just yelled at me because I was trying to like do new stuff. And he's like, dummy, go back to the basics. Just watch the ball. Like, and a lot of times we just need to do that as business owners and be like, all right, and then just take all the lessons that you've learned, all the fuck ups that, like, all right, well, we'll just do it better. And in the agency world, we always grew every year. So like I didn't learn that lesson until I started doing this business, until maybe 3 years ago, where we hit a very high number. Like literally every year I owned a business up until 3 years ago, business always grew by a lot. And then the past couple of years gone down a little bit, like 5%, 10% here and there. And it's a really gut punch. But then it reminded me of going, I'm looking at vanity metrics. My profit went up, revenue didn't. That's okay. Do I have more time? Yep. Did I help more people? Yep. And then you start looking at the right things, I think, versus revenue.
Yeah, it is. Uh, it's an interesting question to take a step back on, of why growth? Why are you growing? What do you want out of it? And I remember when we were a 6 or 7 person agency, I was talking with a former client who'd started an investment fund, and he wanted to support organizations that promoted veganism and animal rights. And so
Right.
he said the mission of this organization is, we're going to invest in companies to do that. We're going to make some money along the way, but that's what we want the higher purpose to be. And uh, and that was why he wanted to grow. The more he could grow, the more companies he could invest in, the greater the impact he could have. But he asked me that, and I uh, had to admit I hadn't thought about why growth, or what I wanted out of growth. I just assumed that that's what everybody should do, right? You got to get bigger. If you're not getting bigger, you're not successful. And uh, we also grew every year until the last couple, and then flattened out a bit. And so it's it's a uh, necessary challenge to tackle, questions to ask yourself, so that you're making the right decisions to get to a better situation,
Yep.
right? And it's too easy to go head down and just grind away, and then look up and wonder
Well,
where you are.
I think the other thing too, right? Like, I think most people live, and I've seen this, working with thousands of founders over the years, is people live up to what they make and they don't put away a lot. And so when that happens, they're putting all their eggs in one basket, which is I need to sell my business.
Mm.
And that's how I'm going to retire. And so one of the things I was talking to someone a little while ago, and I told them, I said, look, as my income always increased, I didn't really increase my lifestyle much. Like people may see some of the stuff that I do and that kind of stuff and think, but like I really kind of only lived off 50% of what I made. And so for 20 some odd years, I only spent 50% of what I made, allow me to invest. And so like I would be fine even if I didn't sell that agency.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always tell people is like, as you make more, do that, because then it gives you options and you're not making decisions on money. Now, psychologically, like psyche Jason is like, past couple of years, I'm like, man, I don't like my revenue going down. It doesn't matter, right? Like it still messes with my mindset because I'm like, well, does that mean I'm not affecting people and helping people anymore? Does that mean, like, am I not significant in this industry anymore? And like, I'll have those thoughts, like as I'm running and doing nothing, like not listening to music. And then I'll be like, maybe this was a good run. Maybe I should stop. Right. Like I have those thoughts. And I think everybody has those thoughts. That's why I'm being honest with all of you is, it's not all sunshine and fucking rainbows. And you just got to kind of figure it out. But I think the one thing I tell a lot of people is if you can put away not just 5% or 10%, put away as much as you possibly can, you'll have more financial freedom. Like there's a company that's a member of mine. They have two partners. One spends their whole paycheck. The other one has not been putting away. One is completely miserable. One is completely happy and free. Which one do you think it is? Right.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, so what do you tell people when they are at that point where they're getting ready to sell their agency? They maybe have a number in their mind that is based on nothing really, but just a number that they want out of the agency. How do you walk them through that process? Because I've heard that can be a real harsh wake up call for agents.
What is? Well, there's a couple harsh wake up calls, right? The one is your whole identity has been agency so-called owner or CEO. And if when you sell, you sold your soul, like you feel like you're selling your baby. Well, that was just like a car. That was a mechanism, right? You're not selling your soul or your identity. Your identity is innovative, creative, resourceful, right? Like all these things you can put to other things and you can do other things, right? So you have to kind of realize that. The other part is the market changes. Like a lot of people say, I'm going to sell when I am 55. And I think that's kind of silly because you don't know where the market's going to be or what, right? I think you should sell when you know exactly what you want to do next, or you have repeatedly for over a 6-month period, you haven't been happy, but you know exactly what you want to do. Mm-hmm. If you sell your agency and don't know what the next step is for you, like where are you going, the destination, you're going to be depressed, because I was depressed. I went to a Tony Robbins event. That's how depressed I was. Walk on the stupid fire, right? Like, right? Like I really did. Like I was like, oh, I sold my soul. Like I have no purpose anymore. Like people kind of wither away. But like if you're going to be an airline pilot, cool. Sell the fucker. Go start flying. You know exactly what you want to do. You have a goal, because we have to be building something. We've been building something for so long. I think the number is irrelevant. The number's the number. If you have a number in the head, perfect. There could be a buyer. But sometimes, like, some agencies have a very unrealistic expectation. Like, most agencies that are under the million in EBITDA, they think they're going to sell for multiples of their top line revenue. I'm like, no, it's more bottom line. And if you're under the million and EBITDA, that multiple goes down dramatically. Um, but I always like to tell people, build the foundation like you're going to sell it, but don't have to. Just put away a ton of money, get rid of the shit you don't like, then you're good.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
But I mean, it sounds like a lot of the discussions you have with agency owners are trying to get them to that uh,
it's like
arrangement where
identity shift.
what's that?
It's an identity shift,
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and
right?
yeah, and that is tough as well because um, I would assume when you were running your agency, nobody cared more about it than you did, and uh, and it also allowed you to have conversations that you wouldn't otherwise have had if it was just you and not the agency.
Well, sometimes, but if you give kind of ownership decisions and ownership, like when we sold some of our team that had like equity and that kind of stuff, they benefited, right? And they made decisions like owners. Like there's a book that we have coming out called The Operator to Owner, right? And it's kind of the 5 shifts you go through in the evolution. And that just doesn't apply to founders. That applies to anybody within the company.
Hmm.
Because people can, right? Like you give them more responsibility, you give them more ownership, they're going to make decisions like you. They're going to care about the business like you. Now, they may not have sleepless nights like us because we started it, but that's a challenge sometimes. But uh, I look at people that have a career like an airline pilot, and I'm envious because they can shut the plane down and they can shut their mind off.
Very true. Very true. Why did we get into this business if we didn't want to do that?
Well, we all got into it by accident. That's why.
Yeah, yeah.
So, well, cool. Well, this has been a blast, Scott. Thanks so much for coming on my show. For everyone listening, if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you go check out the new book. It's called Operator to Owner. You can find that at operator2ownerevolution.com. And until next time, have a swank day.